Oh man, was that a fun win for the LA Rams to get here. Shout out to all the people who were saying coming into this week that the Rams were going to get a blowout win over the Titans. I predicted that they were going to end up winning 24-13 over the Titans, and the Rams honestly could have won this game 40-19. Final score for the game ended up being a Rams win 33-19. But we were on the 1 yard line there at the end. We could have punched it in if we wanted to, but decided to kneel out the clock, drain some clock, and get the field goal. So Rams end up winning 33-19. Again, it could have been 40-19. And what a game for this Rams team, especially coming off of what we saw last week against the Texans. I know a lot of Rams fans, were very concerned about this Rams offense, only putting up 14 points last week. And just the overall outlook as a whole, a lot of people didn't like that win, even though we got the win. It was 14-9. This week, I think fans should be a lot more happy. When you just look at the scoreboard alone, winning 33-19, this is the kind of thing that championship teams should be able to do. And beating inferior teams like this is what they should be able to do. I give a lot of credit to the Titans for hanging around in this game the way that they ended up hanging around. And Cam Ward made some impressive throws there, especially as we're getting closer to halftime. That crazy crossbody throw to Io Manor, he just made some jaw-dropping throws, and you expect that, right? You expect to see some of those plays to end up happening, but to be able to take control and to dominate in the second half of this game in particular is what really impressed me with this Rams team. Because when you head into halftime, Titans were winning 13-10, and offense was up and down. I would say they were moving the ball really well, but they were stalling out when it mattered in the red zone area and even inside of the 10. And so you're trailing 13-10 to a team who you expect to beat. I wasn't worried at that point, but I was hoping to see a little bit better out of the Rams in the second half. And boy, did we see that. The Rams really began to kind of figure things out there in the second half. We saw something crazy that I found. Obviously, Rams were trailing 13-10 heading into halftime, and it was 13-16, and the Rams were trailing with 3:32 left in the third quarter. And at that point, that's where the Rams really began to take control. They had 3 consecutive drives with touchdowns, and they were beginning to really suffocate on defense there. And that's really where you could see everything just start to come together, from the explosive pass plays, the aggression that the Rams were showing in the passing game, to Puka and Davante, the beautiful split between both of them, and how well the Rams were able to kind of pepper both of those guys. Both of them, actually Puka didn't get to 100 yards, but both of them were around that 100-yard mark. Both had a touchdown. You just really began to see what this offense was advertised to be and what we heard about throughout training camp to really come to the surface. And this is what you expect when you're playing a team like the Titans, who have a rookie quarterback who is obviously talented, but they do have a rookie quarterback. And so you expect things just to be a little bit more simple down as far as the game plan, with running the ball, having some quick screens, quick passes. That was the Titans offense all game. And as I made my score prediction heading into this week, and as I was previewing this game, I was like, I expect this Titans offense to be one to be very conservative, dink and dunk. They'll have their plays here and there, but it's going to be up to the Rams offense to put the aggression on and force them to have to play the game plan that they don't want to play. We didn't see that a lot in the first half from the Rams offense. Obviously, again, they were trailing 10-13, but second half is where you really began to see things click, because first half the Rams were moving the ball very well, but again, it was in that red zone area that they were stalling out and getting field goals instead of touchdowns. And so you were leaving the Titans in the game with this one, but second half is really where the Rams began to take control. Again, it was 13-16. Rams were trailing with 3:32 left in the third, and then they go on to score 3 consecutive touchdown drives. Defense is getting more confidence. They're getting into Cam Ward's face. They're forcing him to play a game that he doesn't want to play, and the Titans coaching staff doesn't want him to play, of having to have huge chunk plays and rely on that. And that's where you really saw the Rams take control in this game. I thought just overall, it was really cool to see the offense step up the way they did, because this Rams defense in the last 2 weeks has played really well. They give up their plays here and there, but overall they play really well. In the entire second half, the Rams defense only let up 6 points to the Titans offense, which I thought was very impressive. And when you can complement that with a good offense like the Rams showed, that they're actually being able to run the ball and pass the ball equally effectively in that, third to fourth quarter range, you really begin to see what the Rams were drawing up when they brought in the personnel that they did and when they stuck with some of the guys that they did. You saw some explosives in this game. I really did like the split between between Davante Adams and Puka Nacua. That was something that was just really cool to see, because sometimes Stafford can hone in on one target and sometimes that's what the coverage dictates. But when you look at the yards as a whole between both Puka and Davante, so Davante Adams had 6 catches for 106 yards and a touchdown, breakout game here for the Rams. And then Puka Nacua, 8 catches, 91 yards. And then if you add on top of that, he also ran one carry for 45 yards and a touchdown on top of that. And I think that's what you want to see out of this Rams offense, is just have an even split between both of those guys in terms of the receiving production, in terms of how much they're impacting the game, even the things that don't show up on the stat sheet. It just felt like very well managed between both sides. If we get into some of the standout players here for the Rams, I would say a big standout, and this is one that I highlighted coming into this game, especially with J.C. Latham being out the way that he was with the injury. Byron Young just continuing to perform and to build on that performance that he had in week 1. He had 2 sacks this game. He had the strip sack that set us up to really begin to take that momentum and get that 3 play scoring, or I guess it was 3 consecutive scoring drives that the Rams had there. Byron Young had a very impressive day. It had some pressures in there, 2 sacks, a strip sack. Strip sack was obviously the most important one that we saw to really take the momentum from the Titans. Another one, though, that I was impressed with was Davante Adams. This is what you expect to see when you bring in a marquee receiver like this for the Rams offense, a true X receiver. This is what we were advertised in the offseason. And it was impressive to see him look this good and to have the stats that he did when you barely had any reps in camp with Matthew Stafford. They already seem to have a rapport that's building each week. Last week on the stat sheet, his performance didn't show up as much as we wanted to against the Texans. But this week, you could really feel him. You could really feel the balance. There's even a point where it felt like they just kept going to Davante Adams, especially in the red zone. And then, of course, another standout player, Puka Nacua. You just saw this guy really beginning to just build on what he did last week as well. Just Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable. But I loved how it wasn't all on Puka Nacua. It wasn't all about what he was able to be doing to make this Rams offense go like we saw against the Texans last week. You could actually see an even split between both of them. And even one of the touchdowns that we ended up getting in this game through the passing game was Davis Allen again, like he did last week. And so I just love to see that healthy balance and the utilization of the weapons that we do have. And there's still so much more to build on, but Puka and Davante both obviously standout players, as well as Byron Young. Another one that's just kind of an honorable mention, in my opinion, is the Rams rookie Josiah Stewart. He was in there for actually a good portion of the game. He subbed in there and was just helping to take some relief for Byron Young and Jared Verse, especially in the heat. They were playing in like 95-degree weather. And Josiah Stewart had a sack, had a couple of pressures, and he's looking really promising, especially for a rookie only playing in his second game. He had some impact plays there. So just watch out for number 10 and see how much he builds on this year. Another one, honorable mention, standout, Matthew Stafford. He obviously had that one interception to Cody Barton near halftime, and obviously that set up a field goal that the Titans ended up getting to make it 13-10 heading into half. But I honestly see what Matthew was seeing there when it showed the replay, and it showed him, trying to hit Tutu Atwell on that out route. Cody Barton's head was completely turned, not even looking at the football when Stafford released it. So I think Stafford was thinking that he wasn't even going to see the ball. And it was just a good play by Cody Barton. He turned around at the right time, made a play on the ball. But Matthew Stafford, all day, he was dialing it up. And you can't have a good performance from Matthew Stafford without the pass protection. I was very impressed with the Rams' pass protection, especially missing Steve Avila. With him missing this game, the Rams' pass protection is what made this offense go. And that's where you could see some of the explosive plays that took place in this game with Davante Adams, that took place in this game with Puka Nacua. And you could see that really beginning to open up the offense and what the Rams really want to do at the end of the day. Another one, honorable mention, Tyler Higbee. It was just cool to see him get those targets that he did in the first half, was really beginning to impact drives in the first few drives there. He wasn't as involved in the second half, but he didn't need to be. That was more of the Puka and Davante show. So I think, if the Rams needed him, he would have done things, but that was just an honorable mention there with Tyler Higbee. Overall, Byron Young, Davante Adams, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, Josiah Stewart, the pass protection, Tyler Higbee, those are the things that really stood out to me as far as the standout players for this game. Let me see what you guys have to think, though, here. in the comments. Thank you everybody for stopping in today for this post-game show. We got Willie Bowen. Thank you so much, Willie, for stopping into the stream. He said, I'm happy that the LA Rams spread the offense around. Davis Allen, Puka Nacua, Davante Adams, and Blake Corum all entered the red zone. Yeah, I was really happy to see that too. This is what you should be able to do when you have all this kind of personnel, and what you should be able to do when you have a genius play caller in Sean McVay. Obviously, there's going to be days where Puka Nacua is just going off like he does every Sunday, and there's going to be days that Davante Adams is going off, and you have to respect those things, but you can't have it all just drive through one person. So I definitely agree with you. To see the splits on offense, to see all the different players that they used, I was definitely very pleased with that, and this is the kind of offense that we were advertised. I think it started a little bit slower in the first half. When you just look at the score, we only had 10 points in the first half. But really, when you take a look at it at a deeper, like if you dive deeper into it, I think that really comes down to us stalling in the red zone, which I'd expect to get cleaned up a little bit there. And obviously, we figured things out in the second half good enough there too. Any update on Akello Witherspoon? I haven't heard any updates. If any of you guys have heard updates on Akello and his injury that he suffered, he went down pretty early in this game. Definitely let me know the status on him. I haven't heard of anything, though, so far. Hopefully he's okay, though, because he's obviously one of our best corners. Rams House, the conductor, trying to peanut punch and missed this. So punched Pollard like 3 times. Might need to call this defense that peanut gang. Yeah, you could see it kind of seemed infectious after last week with what Nate Landman was able to do and have that peanut punch. You could see the Rams drawing for the ball, trying to get those, those fumbles. And I think you can do that a little bit more. You can afford to do that, going for the peanut punch, going for those turnovers a little bit more against a team like the Titans than you can like an Eagles, who we'll play next week. So definitely cool to see that. Cool to see conductor getting a sack in the Music City as well. Rob Navarro says, great W, Rams. Thank you so much, Rob. Definitely a big W for the Rams. I think, again, coming into this game, I expected us to win 24-13. I thought that the pass rush would be a lot better for the Titans, especially in the interior. They had their moments, but they didn't break the game like I thought they had the chance to. And that's really when you're able to see this Rams offense just kind of click on all and fire on all cylinders there. Again, we could have put up 40 points in this game. It really could have been 40-19 if we didn't just kneel it out and then take the field goal. So to think that the Rams went from scoring 14 points last week to 40 points this week, I think speaks a lot to, first, you had to get that week 1 rust game out of the way. But it also speaks to the opponent that they're playing. The Titans have a solid defense, but I think that there's some weaknesses there. And when you look at the Houston Texans, they are a defense that I think is definitely going to be top 5 this year. They could even be number 1 by the end of the year. So to take that jump from 14 points last week against the Texans to 40 or almost 40 points this week, they really should have put up 40 points if they wanted to. I think that's a really encouraging thing to see for the Rams fans, especially when you take a look at how they did it once again. They did it because they were spreading the ball around. They did it because they were mixing the run and the pass. I think if there was something that, if you had to nitpick anything on this Rams team, and if you had to look at the offensive side of the ball, yes, we scored 33 points, could have scored 40 points. Something I would love to see them be able to do better is run the ball. I think if they could run the ball a little bit more efficiently, it felt like both last week and this week, we weren't able to run the ball very well. It was really at the end of the game. Shout out to Blake Corum, who got in the game, actually got some big runs and a touchdown. Kyron Williams, even on that last drive, got a big run. So I think if you can run the ball a little bit better, this offense is going to be a lot more dynamic. That would be the one thing that I would nitpick, is if you could just run the ball better, it sets up a lot of things. It sets up the play action pass. I like how McVay stays committed to the run, even when it's not working. But if I had to nitpick anything between this week and last week, it would be the inefficiency in the run game. And I think that you really saw to see that, like, we just ended up wearing down on this defense enough at the end of the game where we could break off those runs. But if we can do that, if we can run the ball at a high clip, that sets up the passing game, that takes some of the pass rush edge off of whoever we're playing, and it makes a balanced offense. That's what McVay wants. He always talks about marrying the run and the pass game together. And so if we can run the ball better, if we can create some bigger lanes for Kyron, I don't think it's all on Kyron. I think that it's just been bottled up pretty well. Shout out to both defenses we played. But if you can really open that up, a team that scored 33 points this week could have scored 40 points, could end up scoring even more than that, or looking more efficient and not having to punt the ball on certain drives. And so if we can get that run game going a little bit better, I would definitely be very pleased with that. Tay and Staff, timing still a little off, needs to be fixed before the Eagles. Yeah, and I think it's cool that you're building on and seeing that chemistry build from week to week. From last week, I think to this week, you saw a big improvement between their chemistry, and that's only a week. And they did definitely have some misses there. In the red zone, you saw some misses, and you did see some misses on some potential explosive plays. But you also saw some really, really exciting plays, like that fade route that we had, like 20 yards to Davante Adams on a 3rd and 5. A beautiful touch throw by Matthew Stafford with the pressure in his face, and Davante Adams being able to win on his route against their best corner, L'Jarius Sneed. And then you see him on the slant routes. You see him, both Puka and Davante, on those crossing routes. I think you are going to see the chemistry continue to build between these two. I'm very confident that that is going to happen. And I think I was very impressed to see how much progress they made this week as opposed to last week with Davante Adams and Matthew Stafford's connection. But they definitely did miss on a couple ones there. I just think when I look at this game, I'm really happy, obviously, when you look at the score. And a lot of that dominance really did come from the 3rd to the 4th quarter, where we just scored on 3 consecutive drives, all being touchdowns. You had the Byron Young strip sack. You really began to take control. And I think this is one of the big keys that I had coming into this game, like I talked about earlier. When you're playing a Titans team who has a rookie quarterback, who is still figuring things out on the offense, who has a banged up offensive line that already wasn't that great to begin with, they are going to be doing those quick passes. They're going to be running the ball. They're going to be doing screens. This is, at the end of the day, not going to be much of an explosive offense aside from a few moments that they have. But I think what really you need to do against teams like this is establish putting up points early instead of getting field goals, getting touchdowns, to pressure on a team like the Titans to have to rush and play a game that they don't want to play. This is what we saw in the second half on those 3 consecutive touchdown drives by the Rams, and the Titans offense just kind of reeling, trying to get drives together. That's not the kind of game you want to play if you're a Titans team. And so I think if the Rams offense can step up earlier on, and again, they were moving down the field very well. They were having explosives very well in the first half. Despite only putting up 10 points, they were stalling out in the red zone. If you can get clicking on offense earlier, in general, but especially against a team like the Titans, who are a young team with a rookie quarterback, who don't want to play, a kind of McVay kind of offensive style with big plays and all that, that is where you can really put pressure on them. If you can get those scores early, if you can really begin to establish that pressure early with getting those touchdowns instead of field goals, extending drives instead of punts early on, that's where you can see more turnovers happen. That's where you can see more blowouts happen. And I think the Rams really made great second half adjustments to be able to move down the field. And instead of just moving down the field like they did in the first half, it was capitalizing and getting touchdowns when you were in the red zone and having explosive plays, being aggressive, sticking to the run game to set up play action. So that's a big thing for me. Big 2 things to take away. Again, if I had to nitpick anything, it's starting faster on, or not even necessarily starting faster on offense, because we did start pretty fast on offense against the Titans this week. It was more so finishing those drives. So I guess getting 7s instead of 3s is going to be a big thing for me that I hope the Rams get better at, earlier on, just to put pressure on teams. But the only other thing that I would say is just getting that run game established early. I love how they stick to it. I love how they're not abandoning the run. But the last 2 weeks definitely have been not the best results as far as getting yards per carry. And Kyron hasn't had a lot of big gaping holes to be able to run through. And so if you can start faster on offense, more so like converting 3s into 7s instead of having punts extend the drive, I think you're looking at a team that could be really dominant against teams that aren't even the Titans. And so I don't know what you guys have to say about that. If there's anything that you take away, any big players, big performances, all of that, that would be the one thing I would say that if you had to take anything out of this one, if you had to nitpick anything, it's those 2 things. But I love the way that they were able to respond. I love how they were able to make the scoreboard reflect how well they were playing and how much they were really dominating this game, because Titans definitely stayed in the game for almost midway through the 3rd quarter. They were definitely in this game. But I think that the Rams were really able to figure things out and make the adjustments they needed to make. And at no point in this game, even when the Titans were leading 13-10 at halftime, was I worried that the Rams were going to win this game. That's how confident I am in this Rams roster. That's how confident I am in this coaching staff. And I'm just glad to be able to be in a position where we have a Super Bowl winning veteran quarterback and we have a Super Bowl winning veteran head coach who is one of the best in the league, to be honest. And you have a roster that is just full of superstars, full of great role players that when you're trailing to a team that is inferior, you're not shaking in your boots hoping that, oh, I hope we pull this out. Like, there was no point in this game where I thought that we were losing this game, and that's just great confidence to have. I wore my Hecker Bone. You wore your Hecker Bone jersey. Yeah, I definitely missed Johnny Hecker, and still do. I think he's still a really good punter even at this point in his career. And I was definitely expecting to see one fake punt this game, especially playing against Bones Fossil, our old special teams coach. All the fakes we saw with him and Johnny Hecker. Didn't end up seeing any fakes. We almost saw a punt return, though, which was definitely scary there for a second. But there was a blindside block, legal block on the back. Luckily, ended up taking that one away. But, that was the drive that Cam Ward had that magic throw cross body all the way over to Io Manor. That was a crazy drive there. But yeah, I definitely miss Coach Bones. Definitely miss Johnny Hecker. But glad we were able to take that win. Bones got us on the block to kick. Yeah, he definitely did. Yeah, definitely seems to know our personnel even after not being on our team for a while. He seemed to know what weaknesses to kind of exploit and which weaknesses to attack. But yeah, again, I was just very happy with this win as a Rams fan, just to see a very complete team win. And I was happy to see our defense being able to keep us in this game in the entire first half and a little bit into the third quarter when we did only have 10 points, when we were trailing at 1 point 10-13, they kept us in this game, and they even helped to bring us some momentum with that Byron Young strip sack to set us up in perfect field position to end up getting that touchdown to Davante Adams. I think that is really a credit to the defense for keeping us in this game, for playing the way that they did against the team that they should, meeting expectations the way that they should, and then the Rams offense being able to figure things out. Again, first half, they were moving the ball really well, and they were getting down the field. It was more so about converting those opportunities in the red zones, getting touchdowns. And then the second half, you really saw, oh, this is what the Rams offense is supposed to be. When you got from that third quarter to the fourth quarter, that transition period, that is where you were seeing the game plan, the blueprint for what this Rams offense truly is supposed to be and what they're capable of doing. So I was very happy to see that, and definitely just glad to see the Rams come out with a win here. Again, they could have won 40-19 if they truly wanted to. I just think that, they just want to drain clock, get the field goal, end the game. Definitely understand it. A win's a win, no matter how many points you win by. And I think the outlook for this season has gotten a lot brighter for Rams fans who were worried about last week's game against the Texans only scoring 14 points. I voiced my opinions about it last week, that I wasn't worried when the Rams scored 14 points against the Texans. The Texans are a top defense. It's week one. Rams don't play starters in preseason. You kind of expect a performance like that. But to see them be able to rebound the way that they did this week, to see the explosives, to see, again, I keep going back to that, the Puka Nacua and Davante Adams split be so well. Again, you go back to the stats there. Puka Nacua obviously had the one run for 45 yards and a touchdown on 4th down and 1, which is crazy to start the game. But then you go to the receiving stats. Puka Nacua had 8 catches, 91 yards. Davante Adams, 6 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. And that's not even to count some of the pass interference yards that they were able to get there. So just overall, very pleased by this Rams team. Going back over once again, standout players here for the Rams. I definitely got to go Byron Young, 2 sacks, the strip sack to set us up, really take momentum. He definitely took advantage of the matchup against the backup right tackle, filling in place for J.C. Latham. Byron Young's got 3 sacks in 2 games and a strip sack and is playing the run a lot better. He's going to be a guy to keep an eye on as his contract year is coming up. Then you got Davante Adams, again, standout player, huge performance by him. Love to see the split. Love to see all the different looks he was getting from Matthew Stafford and the different targets he was getting, just to see those things to be able to convert a little bit more than they did last week. Puka Nacua, can't say enough about him in the run game, in the pass game, in the blocking. Puka Nacua, fan favorite, just balls out as he does every week. Josiah Stewart, underrated guy I don't think a lot of Rams fans are going to talk about. He's a rookie, 3rd-round pick. Not really somebody that you would expect to be on here, but he really did, he was able to give the breathers to Byron Young and Jared Verse that they needed. He was able to capitalize getting the sack that he did in his second week of his NFL career, and he was able to get some pressures there as well. And I just think to be able to spell guys like Jared Verse and Byron Young is going to be important as the season goes on, and especially in a game like this when you're playing in 95-degree humid weather, to be able to have a really competent guy to come in, and even above competent, to be able to come in and produce and not to feel like there's a crazy drop-off. So shout out to Josiah Stewart. Matthew Stafford, again, he had that one interception everybody's going to be complaining about and being like, man, why did he throw this? again, if you look at it from one angle, you may question why he threw that ball. But if you look at the replay, you see him throwing that out route, see that the defender was not looking at the ball when Matthew Stafford released the ball. I can understand what he was doing there. I think Cody Barton just made a good play, turned around at the right time. Matthew Stafford, though, he put on a clinic, and he can't do that without the pass protection. Again, pass protection overexceeded my expectations. They did a lot better than I thought they would against Jeffrey Simmons. I think it helped that T'Vondre Sweat wasn't in for this game, but the pass protection held up really well. We had a couple miscues here and there, as every team does, but the pass protection set up those explosive plays. Those plays can't happen without you giving enough time for Matthew Stafford to go through his reads, make the no looks, make the seam buster throws, make the corners, the post, all the throws you need to make. Shout out to the offensive line. They're not going to get a lot of credit, but I definitely noticed them. And then Tyler Higbee in the first half. Good to see all the use that he got there and the different looks that he was able to provide for the Rams. Stafford, back player of the year. I would love Stafford for a comeback player of the year. I really would. It feels like, for whatever reason, the narrative with Matthew Stafford and the media doesn't seem to give him the respect that he deserves all the time. I think he's gotten more respect as he's come to LA, but even I think you could argue that he could have won that in 2023, and that obviously didn't end up being the case. He didn't end up getting comeback player of the year, but I think he deserved it. So I'd love to see Matthew Stafford get comeback player of the year. Big fan of Matthew Stafford. So glad he's our quarterback. Just shows up, does his thing, does a lot of things that a lot of casual fans wouldn't notice that only elite tier quarterbacks do. And I'd love to see Stafford have comeback player of the year, but I'd honestly be kind of surprised just because of the narrative around Matthew Stafford and what the media says about him. I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts. Those are basically my thoughts on this game. If you have any more comments, any more questions, any more thoughts on this game, be sure to drop them down below. I'd love to answer your questions, but if not, again, complete win for the Rams. They're 2-0 this week out of a very complete game. Nice to have the Rams starting fast this year rather than the last couple of years where we really started slow. And really nice to see what we were promised and what we were hearing all throughout camp about this offense and about this defense, the complementary football that they can play. It's really cool to see that come into effect this week. Obviously, we got to win last week against the Texans, and that was great to see that. But you really began to see why this team can be a Super Bowl contending team and a team that can really win the whole thing. So those are my thoughts on this game. I'll be sure to clip this up and to leave the timestamps, the chapters on the video here or on the live stream. Definitely thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys have any more thoughts, let me know in the comments down below. But that's gonna be my live stream here as I answer this last thing. Who had Puka 45 yards running touchdown on their bingo card? I certainly didn't. And even on that fourth down play there, when we ran that jet sweep kind of like end around thing, for a second, I thought they had him stopped and that it was going to be a turnover on downs. And then he just kind of slipped through there. It didn't even look like he was running that fast, and he seemingly outran the whole defense. So definitely glad to see Puka get in there. Definitely glad to see Davante in there. And what a team win for the Rams. Again, I'm going to be adding chapters for this video. I'm going to be cutting it up for you guys to see if you guys end up watching on the replay. Thank you for all who watched live here and left comments. I really do appreciate you guys, though. As always, horns up and God bless.